In this video, I'd like to talk a little bit about why I think the rule of thirds is wrong and what I think some better tools are to help you improve your photographs and improve your photography composition. Interestingly enough, for some reason, all of the articles for beginners, books for beginners that you come across when you first are learning photography and picking up a camera for the first time introduce this rule of thirds where you break up an image into sections by thirds, either horizontally or vertically. And I'm not entirely sure why that is or why this became sort of the industry standard for learning how to take photographs, but I don't think it's actually all that useful. So let's take a look at a few examples of why I think this doesn't really work and what you can do instead. All right, so what I have here is just the thumbnail for this video, and let's analyze this and kind of look at it from a perspective of composition. And this is in Capture One, by the way, in case you're curious what software I'm using. If we sort of split up this photo, you can see that I've pretty much put this photograph into to try and match the rule of thirds, where basically the center of my face in this case is kind of the line where the light divides my face, and I've lined that up with the little vertical line over here on the side. And it looks fine. Honestly, it totally works as a thumbnail, but as a standalone image, so once you take the text away, it kind of is a little strange. I'm not sure. I would look at this photograph and think to myself, there's a lot of negative space here, which is just in space in the photograph where there is effectively nothing. And I'm not sure what that's for, or I'm not sure it's really adding to the composition. So let's change the crop a little bit and let's see what we end up with. So we're gonna go ahead and ignore the rule of thirds here. We're just gonna center this thing up. In fact, we're not even gonna put the eyes in the third part of the frame here. Let's try that. Okay, I think that's not a bad composition. I think now that we've sort of centered this, it would be nice to kind of get some more light on this side of the face. I'm not going to go through and edit this photo, but you get the idea. And this is a perfectly good crop, and it follows none of those rules. And I think it totally works. In fact, this is very similar to what the thumbnail of my channel is right now. And the reason I chose this image first is because I intentionally designed this image to be lit a certain way and to feel a certain way. And so that has nothing to do with how you divide up the sections of the image or whether or not a certain landmark falls a third up the image or to the left or to the right of the image. Let's look at some more examples. I think this will become more clear as we go through these. So the next one would be, let's see, an image I shot with my cell phone. So this was in Arizona. My tent that sits on top of my truck was all wet. I needed to dry it out. This is not a great image. But let's use the rule of thirds to try and make it I don't know, a better image maybe. So we can move this thing around. We can put the line right underneath where the tent sits maybe and try that crop. Nope, still not a good image. You get what I'm doing here. And then we can pretty much do whatever we want with this thing. Maybe we put the truck in the, I don't know, the headlight in the left third of this image. Nope, still, kind of better. It's closer, but still not a good image. Here's the thing. You can't make an image a good image just by using the rule of thirds. And just because you didn't use the rule of thirds, it doesn't mean the image is necessarily bad, as we saw in the first case. Let's look at one more example. So here's an image I shot of some architecture in Chicago. I think these are called the Cobb Towers. And I didn't really follow any compositional rules here at all. If we look at kind of where things fall, the center dividing line, or not center, but the dividing line between these two buildings where light is kind of pouring through the back of them isn't on any kind of line or demarcation. The windows are the larger kind of, I think, parking areas of these buildings don't fall really at any of the correct points or anything like that. It basically ignores every rule that is a third in this image. And I think it's a great photo. I love this photo. But it's a great photo for different reasons. And let's talk a little bit about what those are now that we've seen some examples of things that do and don't follow the rule of thirds. All right, let's talk a little bit about what makes a great photograph, or at least in my opinion, what makes for a great photograph. And there's probably a lot of similarities between me and other photographers. You may see similar information out there. This is just my experience, and these are kind of the tools that I use in order to take images. And I think it will be helpful to you because as I was learning, and this has taken many years, I never really came across this information all kind of put together in one place. So let's give you the tools that you need to actually create and capture interesting photographs instead of just dividing up an image with lines and stuff. All right, so you're going to see me now try and draw a triangle effectively. Hey, that's not too bad. You know, that line was pretty bad. There we go. And there we go. Okay, we'll accept that, I guess. So we're going to use these elements to take great photographs. Light, subject, and story. So this video series is going to be like I think a 4 or 5 part series, and we're going to go over each one of these items individually, but I'll cover them sort of briefly now so that you can get started right away and you know what's going on. So in my opinion, it's these 3 elements that make for an interesting photograph, and you have to put them all together in order for your photograph to work. If you're missing one of them, usually it doesn't really work. So let's talk about what this means real quick. So first of all, light. Really, honestly, it just means interesting lighting conditions, and there's a lot to talk about there, so we'll get into that a little bit later. But for now, just know that taking your camera at any time of day randomly and pointing it at stuff is not always going to give you a great image. You want to be looking at the lighting conditions around you, and there's kind of some specific stuff we'll get into later on, probably in another video. Subject. Your subject needs to be really strong. You need to immediately look at that photograph and think to yourself, this is a photograph of a car, a woman, a flower, a church, whatever you're taking a photograph of. Make it really, really clear, and there's kind of some tricks that you can use in order to do that, moving your camera around, stuff like that. And story, I think, is one of the most difficult ones for people to grasp. This really just means when I look at the image, I need to wonder something. I need to start thinking in my brain, who is this person? Where did this thing exist? Where does this happen? Where in the world is this? Like, could I visit this place? And again, we'll expand on that a little bit later. So let's look at a couple photographs that I think will start to help you tie this together a little bit before we do the deep dives into all of these elements in different videos. All right, let's start with just the one on the bottom here. This is a video of my friend Danny. And I will say that if you happen to ever become my friend, unfortunately, that means you also become a model, because I'm going to take photographs of you all the time. And I've had to ask them repeatedly, can I put you on YouTube? Because all of my photographs are of the people that I spend time with, obviously. So what makes this photograph work, in my opinion? Maybe you hate it, but I like this one. First of all, subject, right? Where is our subject? Right here. It's Danny. Very obvious to see. There's no question. It's not of the tree. It's not of the fire, even though that is a substantial element kind of in the frame here. It is of Danny. In fact, you can't even quite tell really what this is, but this is like a canister we bring camping, and then there's fire in there. So subject we got a clear subject. It's a guy. Item number 2, light. Look at all this light that is coming through off the sky, reflecting on this tree, reflecting on his shirt, coming off of his pants. It's giving a lot of, it's making the scene very dynamic and interesting. And it really also highlights the features of his face, right? Because the light is only hitting one side of his face. The same is true for this thumbnail right here you're looking at of me, right? This is a single light setup hitting one side of my face. And then the last thing is story. So I would say this is not my strongest photograph in that regard. But you do kind of look at it and think, where are they? What is he doing? Why is he sitting that way? And then as you explore a little more, you see, oh, there's a campfire here potentially. Maybe he looks a little bit contemplative, like he's thinking about something. I think he's probably just thinking about how to avoid the mosquitoes, because there were a ton of them out there. And yeah, I think further analysis of that one probably is not necessary. So let's move on to the next photo. This is of my friend Zach, and he is in this photo. Why is my pen not working? Oh, there we go. In this photo, he is catching his drone, which you can see right here. And again, subject is the first thing you notice. Immediately your eye is drawn to the center of this frame where this guy is standing along the side of this hill. There's no question that's the first place your eyes are going to go when you look at this photo. And then they begin to explore. There's a fire and a table over here. There's a sky over here. and there is a drone here. So you really want to be drawn into a single element to begin, and then from there the eye begins to wander through the frame, and that's a really important thing in terms of subject. So again, strong subject. Lighting's pretty good. We got some interesting lighting that I think kind of runs along the edge of his body here, but I think what makes the lighting work mostly is that there's direct light on him and this background is dark. So you see that he sort of pops out against all of these trees in the forest because, again, the subject is lit, but the background is not lit. And that's a really common way to get your subject to really pop out. But we're talking about light here. And then the last thing, we got great light in the sky. This is a really beautiful evening. In fact, this is the same evening as the last photo that I showed you. And that really, whatever kind of lighting conditions you have are really what kind of make the photo. And then story is, I think this one's pretty clear. Obviously, this guy flies a drone. Is he catching it? Is he launching it? What kinds of images is he taking? Is he doing video? Is he a YouTuber? Like all kinds of things you can wonder when you look at this photo. There's an event unfolding. Things are happening in this photo. All right, let's go to the next one. All right, this is of a truck, and it's a truck driving down the road. Again, let's analyze all of the different elements. You're probably getting the hang of this now. Where's the subject? Obviously, the subject is the truck, right? And then as we explore the other elements, lighting conditions, we got some pretty hard light from the sun. This scene is backlit. That can be very challenging, but I think it's working okay in this scenario. We're getting reflections of light off the hood here. His lights in his vehicle are turned on, which is sort of interesting. And there's a lot of contrast, which is basically just a difference between light and dark elements in the photograph in a lot of parts of this scene. So you can see there's like dark over here, light over here, dark over here, light over here, and the same thing in the mountains. Dark mountains, light sky. And so a lot of that contrast is coming out to sort of draw you into this photograph. Again, the lighting conditions. And then story, probably not the strongest either, but still okay. Where is this person going? Are they camping? Are they going away for a weekend? They're driving down this road. It looks kind of remote. Like it kind of makes you wonder what's going on. And are they leaving someplace or going to someplace? It looks kind of adventurous. Like, oh, there's an adventure unfolding here. So yeah, I think that kind of gives you a good idea of sort of how this works. Let's move on to the next one. All right, this is a building in London. I think it's maybe a restaurant or something. But immediately what grabs me about this photograph is the light. There's the lighting conditions from the maybe apartment or something that's behind here, and then also the restaurant. Subject is a little bit more questionable. I think probably if I'm looking at this photograph, I'm drawn most quickly to the writing right in the center of the frame here. But also I think maybe competing subjects could be even problematic, but I think it still works as sort of this whole restaurant area. There's some people kind of sitting down here chatting. And so you're probably going to go here first with your eye and then start looking around here and then exploring that area. And that's kind of another element that is more advanced. We'll talk about at some future date where you want to bring someone in and then give them other things to look at, like supporting elements is what I call it. And yeah, so we have subject, we have light, and a little bit of story. It's like an architecture photo, so it's not a great story photo. I think of all of the elements, story is my weakest. It's something that I need to probably work on a little bit more. All right, so that's it. We've covered, I think, what are the three most essential elements to creating photographs. We've talked about why I think the rule of thirds doesn't really work and honestly is not something you really want to focus on, especially in the beginning of your photography. As you progress, you'll occasionally use it because it's useful in some specific scenario, but mostly what you need to focus on is light, subject, and story. So that's it. Thank you so much for watching. If you are still here, my goodness, you enjoyed the whole video, you should probably subscribe because there's more of this to come. So we'll see you in the next one.